What's up guys, Gons here for the FaceLike the Sun YouTube channel. I've had several of you give me links to a lot of stuff going on. You got the Fantastic Four coming out, you have Superman and versus Batman or whatever, but one of them that really caught my attention was the official Call of Duty Black Ops 3 Ember tease. And I'm going to go through and break down this trailer because it seems like everybody is on this transhumanism and technological integration with mankind. The stuff that Dr. Hugo de Garis talked about in a few videos ago where I quoted him, and if you go back and listen to the interview with Dr. Hugo de Garis, you will know that he was one of the first people to really look at technology, where it was headed. As a scientist, he was doing some work on creating an artificial brain, and he thought, my goodness, this is way too much, and he stepped away from it. And he believes that the next great war will involve these sorts of technologies and have something to do with the divide between mankind as we are and mankind as enhanced beings. And this trailer depicts it very, very well. It starts off here: mankind's greatest mistake will be its inability to control the technology it has created. Well, it's been the warning of science fiction for a long time, but hopefully, more people are talking about it, and hopefully with games like this, and we talked about Deus Ex a little while ago, people are starting to realize that this is a reality. This is really happening, and we have to start talking about it just for society in general, but especially for the church, and that's actually depicted in this. But here we go. I'm going to play a little bit, and I'll pause it and comment and point stuff out. So here's some of the trailer.
Allegations of doping continue.
What has happened to sports?
Now, this is interesting because one of the biggest controversies in the 21st century sports has been doping. It showed the cyclists, that obviously was probably in reference to Lance Armstrong, and that whole controversy with him allegedly coming out with the truth about him doping and stuff like that. And then you have the images of baseball, because obviously baseball, there was a huge problem, or you can call it a problem with steroids. They call it the whole steroid era and all this stuff. So I thought it was a clever way to depict the current state, or at least the last 20 years, of how society has responded to things like steroids, which are basically enhancers. And the thing with steroids that people normally don't understand is that steroids actually is something that helps people recover. It helps the athlete recover at a much faster pace than normal. So it doesn't necessarily build muscle or build strength, although that's kind of a byproduct. It's really a recovery drug that allows you to push harder, work harder, and therefore, get bigger and stronger and whatnot. So obviously the consensus among most of society when they heard about Lance Armstrong was, oh my gosh, he's a cheater. No good. And same thing with the whole baseball steroid era. Oh, it was a bad era. We need to clean up the game, etc., etc. And it depicts that, I think, pretty well. And let's keep going for a little bit.
Continue.
What has happened to sports? Should the record still count?
Should the record still count? Isn't that a debate within baseball right now with someone like Barry Bonds, who broke the all-time home run record, but he was juicing? So, does it count? It's a good, valid question that has been part of our social discussion for the last 15 to 20 years.
Today, we celebrate the first draft of the Human Book of Life.
Okay, so here we have clips from the Human Genome Project of Francis Collins here. Obviously, the DNA mapping that occurred in the early 2000s that brought us into the genetic age. And this will have something to do with, obviously, the enhancement conversation. So, just laying the groundworks.
It's been called the age of wearable technology.
Amazing things happen when we merge technology with our body.
And then they show the current era, which is wearable technologies. And obviously, most people will point this out as sort of a mark of the beast system or whatever. It's sort of the tattoo version of the microchip that's on you. And this technology already exists, but, hasn't been disseminated. But I think we are living in the wearable technologies era. I think that's going to keep going. So it's accurate in that way. And obviously, there's always speculation about how this relates to the mark of the beast as relayed in Revelation 13, but I'm not going to get into that yet. Let's keep going here. Okay, real quickly, I find it interesting that when we go through here, when they show the wearable technologies, they have flashes of a lizard eye. First off, it seems like they're suggesting that the human enhancement program will come with animal hybridization as part of the mix. Now, what's interesting about reptiles with circular pupils is that they are the reptiles that are active during the day, and they probably see in color. Now, here you see the reptile eye, then you see a human eye, and then some technologies that show something that is going to involve the eye. And I think what's happening here is this idea of enhancements within the eyeball itself, and they'll show that in a little bit later. But then they get into prosthetics. That's the next object here that they're discussing. And so let's watch a little bit here. You have a TED Talk guy with prosthetic legs saying that they're going to eliminate disability, which is a good thing. You know, obviously that's a positive thing. You have somebody hearing for the first time, and that's also, you know, a positive thing for people who are deaf to be able to hear. It's quite amazing technology at work. And then you get into the genetic manipulation. And this is where stuff gets interesting. And in the trailer, it talks about 2015. They're showing the footage of babies, you know, probably getting some kind of genetic enhancement. And this is nothing out of the question, guys. It says 2015 there. And no surprise, 1 day ago, the Telegraph in the UK reports China shocks world by genetically engineering human embryos. This is real. This actually is happening right before our eyes. So again, the stuff we've been talking about for so long here, you know, some people obviously longer than others, but at least for me, I've been tackling this issue for at least 5 years now. It is just absolutely incredible to see this kind of stuff actually start going down. And then you have the preacher here. Obviously, they're depicting the church saying, you know, if they're not going to upkeep the morals that have defined humanity, then what good is the progress? And that's a really important question. And I think that's something that most people don't think about. And the divide between those who want to continue to enhance and those who are saying, hey, enhancement is fine and progress is fine, but let's be a little bit more careful. That divide is growing larger and larger every single day. Okay, so now we get into the next 5 years into the 2020s, and it's talking about federal court reaches decision after day of deliberation. And the quote there was, the court declares discrimination against modified persons as unconstitutional. So again, this is going to be an issue, guys. I really wholeheartedly think that they're onto something here. As soon as these modified humans start coming into society, this is going to be an issue. There's going to be discrimination. People are going to go nuts, okay? These enhanced or modified people are going to be accused. It's going to be this whole new civil rights movement type thing where, you know, some people are just not going to be happy about it. And unfortunately, I'm concerned that it's going to be a lot of maybe uninformed Christians or religious zealots and things like that who are going to be violent in opposition of this sort of thing. And man, how difficult is it going to be to wade through some of this? I mean, and the questions start coming in. The questions that I have as a believer is, okay, we're starting to modify humans at this point. Can these people be saved? That's the biggest question I have. And this is where the church needs to really investigate itself and come to conclusions, or at least discuss this matter, because on one hand, a human being that maybe has enhanced prosthetics, you know, some enhanced legs, enhanced arms, stuff like that, you're still largely human. So, you know, you might be good to go in terms of salvation. But what about when we start messing with the genome? What about when we start integrating animal genes with our human gene? And those are the questions that are at the heart of what I've been trying to bring up in this conversation. But let's move on.
Modified persons unconstitutional.
A historic day in sports as the IBA becomes the first league to allow modified athletes to...
Now it seems like they're going to have specific leagues for modified athletes. And then it shows the first Olympic gold medalist with prosthetic legs after all the controversy, you know, and then it shows space, it shows the owls, which is interesting. And then it goes to the 2040s and the brain network communication system. And they're working on this. They're obviously working on this right now. And so this is a reality right before our eyes. Okay. So in the 2040s, they're suggesting that DNA upgrades and organ replacements becomes the norm. It's all the rage. At this point, are we going to get to this point first off? Some people believe that we won't. Some people think that we're going to be raptured out of here before this. And that's possible, I suppose. And, all the stuff that we've read about in Bible prophecy may take place, already before this. But we have to stay vigilant. We have to continue to work here and now until things happen, until we're out of here. So here it is. What does this mean? What does this mean for the church, for the Christians? How do we deal with this? I think mainline church, and this is why a lot of preachers that are really traditional and orthodox in the word, they're saying Christianity, true biblical Christianity, is going to go underground in the very near future, because mainline church, they keep embracing the culture. That's what they do. They try to mold the gospel into a cultural sort of context, which isn't bad in itself. And I've talked about this. Paul did this in Acts 17, where he related to the pagans of his day to try to preach the gospel. But at a certain point, the gospel message gets compromised in terms of the mega churches right now already compromising the gospel to, appease a culture that is falling so far away from biblical principles. And at this point, when we're doing genetic enhancements or DNA upgrades, again, what does that mean? What does it entail? And ultimately for us, and I keep bringing this up, what does it mean for salvation?
You look at me and you see only what you want to see. But you know what I see? Everything.
The 2055 retinal implant from Court.
The 2055 retinal implant. Boy, are you kidding me? Court Optics 2055. I mean, sports is going to be so different that people are going to have enhanced optics now. They see everything. Okay, again, now we're starting to get into technological integration with humans for enhancement. And then it's around 2060 that the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 Ember is suggesting that there will be an uprising. People who reject this progress, if you want to call it that, and start to rebel.
Scientists play God. This is not about technology. This is about right and wrong.
This is no longer about technology. This is about right and wrong. And this is at the heart of the conversation. And in terms of that, I got to give these guys credit over here at Call of Duty. They understand the debate here. They understand at least the cultural dilemma that is on the horizon, and more people are starting to recognize it. And the problem is the train is already moving so fast, it's really going to be difficult to stop it. There is no way of stopping it at this point. I think it's just going to keep going. It is what it is. It's going to keep rolling. So there we have a whistleblower that comes forward and suggests that there are military who are way ahead using these enhancements already. And if you keep watching here.
You think the retinal chips that you buy at the mall are high tech? Our military is light years ahead of that. The things that we use to heal ourselves, they are using to literally turn humans into weapons.
The things that we use to heal ourselves, they're using to turn people into weapons. There you go. The super soldiers are here.
The notion that the United States sponsors some sort of super soldier program is not just untrue, it's patently absurd. Next question.
So there you go. You have a government official denying that such a program exists.
Neural control. Voluntary limb replacement. This is happening.
The only question that remains is how far will we allow it to go?
The only question is how far are we willing to let it go? Guys, this is the topic of this century. I really believe that. And man, I'm praying for Jesus to return. But if he doesn't, he tells us that we're going to have tribulation in this world. And especially for believers, the tribulation is going to get worse. And so when you start thinking about just the theology that a lot of us in this niche of Bible prophecy and looking at Genesis 6 and the sons of God and all that stuff, when we hold that theology and when we hear Jesus say, as in the days of Noah, it really rings so true, because while we don't know exactly what was going on prior to the flood, the things we do understand, even just from a biblical standpoint, all flesh had corrupted their ways. Guys, what is happening right now and where it's leading? This trailer is showing us where it's leading, okay? The next 50 years, technological advancement will lead us into a world where only those who risk going too far will find out how far we can actually go. We're going into a world where flesh is being corrupted and people's thoughts are going to be evil all the time. Again, I keep going back to these passages, but unless Jesus returns, all flesh would be destroyed. And I think it's really important that, while it is very admirable to study the Bible in a proper hermeneutic and an exegetical way, and I'm still promoting that thought, I really think we should study the Bible in that context. We shouldn't just apply whatever passages to whatever's going on. And I've been accused of that, and I openly admit that I speculate on those issues. I'm not saying that I know for sure. For example, Daniel 2:43 is one that people have brought up and accused me like, oh my gosh, you have to read it in context. I get it. But even in context, within cultural things that are going on, you can still make the argument that it could be possibly referring to these kinds of enhancements. But the bigger picture is, we as a church, we as believers, we need to understand that this is nothing new. Ecclesiastes, there is nothing new under the sun. This whole push for technological singularity, for technological advancements, integration with technology, the genetic enhancements, DNA enhancements, all this stuff that's happening right before our eyes. Again, the story where China shocked the world by genetically engineering human embryos. And, this is just going to keep moving on, guys. There are no legal barriers. Business Insider, these are the countries where it's legal to edit human embryos. Chinese researchers have genetically modified a human embryo, and many scientists think they've gone too far. Already, this is happening. And the debate is not in the mainstream. Why? Because there's billions of dollars tied to these projects. They want to do this. And ultimately, what's happening, what I think is happening in reality from a biblical point of view, and this is something that other preachers and pastors and researchers have said, Satan is outnumbered 2-1. Remember, only 1/3 of the angels followed Satan. So in that case, he needs to build an army. And the army that he's going to build is going to be at the hands of humanity. He has deceived humanity into building an image of the beast. And with all this technology going on, you read Revelation 13, the Antichrist getting a mortal head wound and getting healed. I'm sorry, guys. I know some people think it's Rome and they fell and they came back and here it is. They're back and whatever. But I personally don't think that's the case. I think this is a very good example of some person who is going to be militarily already very, very powerful, that's going to be either assassinated or killed or whatever, shot in the head, something, and then he is going to be resurrected with the use of technology. And part of all of this, I think, is going to fit in well with a lot of the research that, again, Chris White has done with presenting this Antichrist potentially being a Jewish Messiah. And the reason why this is really interesting is because Israel right now is a leading nation in technology. And you think about the things that Netanyahu has said himself. They want to create a internet headquarters. There have been Temple Institute guys saying that we're going to use the modern miracle of technology to integrate it into the third temple when we build it. There are so many clues that are coming together, guys, that we need to wake up. I'm sorry I'm getting a little bit too preachy or whatever, but we have to wake up because we need to realize that this stuff is real. It's happening right before our eyes. The church is being steamrolled because pastors on Sundays don't pay attention to this stuff. And meanwhile, you're being bombarded by a culture that rejects the Lord, rejects truth, and are lovers of themselves. And people have questions. This is a real thing, and we need to wake up.